Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. This is the privacy and the security edition. These recorded live Fridays 9 p.m. Eastern Central Time. If you would like to catch the show live, let's go ahead and dive right on in. First, of course, Google and Fitbit sharing all these, combining all the data. Of course, Google and Fitbit are basically owned by the same company. Nest is part of the Google branch. And now Nest is going deeper into your health data by combining Google Fit and Fitbit data into one simple integration. So you can look at the pretty screen and go, wow, look at all the data I'm giving to Google. I'm going to remind you again, your health data, which is on somebody else's servers, is owned by them. They have the ability to use it and access it in a variety of different ways. As they do that, as they go ahead and do that, you have to remember that Google is also working on, or Alphabet, the parent company to Google, is also working on a health insurance company. And these companies do trade and buy and sell data all the time. I would not be using anything that's storing health data on Google. It's just too much of your data getting out there, and that's the type of stuff that they really want you to do. Well, there are several mental health apps that have terrible privacy protections. Prayer apps were also worse than this. This is actually a really good thing that, of all people, Mozilla did. So Mozilla looked at a variety of different apps and found that a lot of apps for mental health, praying, Bible reading, and things like that were really not good for privacy. So they gave us a list of 29 of them. And basically we have to be aware of these. So this is Mozilla's privacy not included. So these are the apps they looked at. Now I'm curious if they looked at other apps as well, just to see if they did. Let's see. Okay, so there's a lot of different apps. Let's go ahead and search. I'm going to search out of curiosity. So I don't know what apps and things they did. Just type in Bible. There's a few there. But looking at the mental health apps, you can see very few of them are considered by Mozilla to be decent. It actually looks like this one and this one, WISA, PTSD Coach, and Glorify, and there was one more, Headspace. Those are the only ones that seemed to not be crazy. There's a variety of other ones, Pride Counseling, the King James Version Bible, some praying apps. These things are all, they have a lot of trackers embedded in them, and they are horrible for your privacy protections. So be very careful about what apps you're using. It's probably generally better not to. This is why, on Linux, it's safe to use your Bible time for Bible study, particularly as relates to my faith. But I tend to not be reliant on apps because I just don't want them collecting the data. Well, Apple, Google, and Microsoft is joining an unholy trinity to kill the password with the passkey standard. So what they're going to be doing is, of course, everybody has their phones, and of course, everybody knows exactly who you are based on your phone. And because of this now, they're creating passcodes into computers, devices, and other things that instead of entering in a password, you'll just go ahead and quickly do it on your phone instead. Isn't this so amazing and convenient? Except I'm not touching that crap. So, the idea here is they want to make sure that they can absolutely 100% identify everything tied to these individual devices. Think about this with Microsoft. For the people utilizing Microsoft and Windows 11, you have to, under no circumstance can you not not have a Microsoft account, which of course they're verifying with two-factor authentication and phone numbers. Basically, they're tying every single computer down to you. And basically the idea here is to verify and make sure that they know exactly who the person is logged into every single device at all times. And that is creepy, scary, and dangerous. So next up, we have this is frightening. This is, I thought of Minority Report quite instantly when I saw this come down the pipeline. Watch a swarm of drones anonymously track a human through a dense forest. It's coming. It's buzzing right around the bend. Look at this thing. Let me mute the sound there so we don't hear buzzing. So basically, these are a bunch of little micro robots. Very small drones, handheld, lightweight. What are they? A little bit lighter than a can of Pepsi. And let me get down to this part here. Now they are identifying their target and they are swarming together. What they do is they're utilizing a network, a mesh network among themselves, that once they identify the target, they're going to constantly communicate with one another to keep a three-dimensional model of where the target happens to be. So here they have picked up on who the target is. Now the target's got to get away from the drones. And he's going to run. And he's going to run from the drones. So he's standing in front of the sheet. The one drone can't see him, but since they're all meshed together, they can keep a regular pattern on where he is as they're going about. This is exactly like those spiders in Minority Report. This is kind of frightening to see what they're doing. And you can just envision the types of things that these types of networks can do in order to be useful for the powers that be, setting up a bunch of drones to hunt people around. So it's very interesting to see what they're doing and what they're modeling and how they're communicating one to another and working in a pattern in a sequence to always keep vision on the individual target. So yeah, that's happening. And next, over in, this is in India, the IT ministry in India orders VPN providers, crypto players, and also it wasn't included here, but also cloud service providers to log all information, basically what United States has in related to its know your customer law. So you got to verify them, give them your ID, blah, 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 all this other nonsense that's privacy invading stuff. And they have to identify everybody and store all user data for 5 years. Because anybody, you can use, for example, Linode and create your own VPN. Well, Linode is now required to do business in India. They're required to verify everybody's identity and use, basically store all of that information for years to come. And the downside of this is, of course, if Linode does business in India and now they're subject to this, and they might because they're owned by this huge global national company now how long before they're like, well, once we have the system rolled in, let's go ahead and roll this out. I got news for you. Well, we use Linode and we'll affiliate link it today. Once they start being like, you need to send me a copy of your driver's license, I'll be like, pick your favorite birdie and close my accounts. And if I happen to not need to be able to use cloud services because of nonsense like that, well, so be it. I guess they're pushing me towards Ludditeness. I was so proud today. I walked into a Sheetz and a guy wanted to buy like a bottle of wine. And they're like, show your ID. He shows his ID. He was clearly old. I mean, this dude was old. He was like 60s at least. He shows his ID. They're like, I need to see it. He's like, why? You can see my birthday. Well, I need to scan it. He's like, I'm not scanning my ID. Gives him the wine back and leaves. I'm like, yeah, man, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. Don't let them scan your ID. He's like, no, you're not scanning my ID. The policy is, am I over 21? Yes, I'm over 21. You can clearly see that. I look old. My ID's in front of you. No, you're not scanning it into your system. Good on that guy. And yeah, if Linode starts asking for my ID, screw that. But anyway, that's kind of what they're doing. So this is over in India, and it does apply to VPNs. So there is no more utilizing of a VPN service in India, keeping your anonymity. Of course, if you're in India, you would need to go outside of India, use a company that does not specifically do business in India, and then you could get around it. But you may not have a server in India because you'd have to be complying to the law to be in there. So very interesting to see what's coming down the pipeline. This is just part of, the global cabal to keep track of everybody at all times. That's exciting. Well, speaking of VPNs and ones not to use, Microsoft is testing a 1 free gigabyte per month VPN service built into Edge browser. Okay, here's the thing about VPNs, okay? There's so much stuff about VPNs these days, and people forget the one principle about VPNs. It takes an extraordinary amount of trust in that individual company. So when you go online, you're either going to have to trust a VPN company or you're going to have to trust your ISP with the data. Many VPN companies can generally be trusted, but when you're talking about routing traffic through Microsoft's built-in VPN, literally everything you do is attached to that account. Not only does Microsoft know it, but it's all attached to your account. Sure, if you're at a coffee shop in a pinch and you absolutely have to log into your bank or something and you have no other option, that might be the only scenario by which you could do it because it's going to be a whole lot more secure than Starbucks creepy Wi-Fi. But the fact remains, do not use this and think that it's a VPN. Basically, what you're doing is you are giving Microsoft all the data that you're doing. So don't use this. This is garbage. It's a ploy where Microsoft is capturing in on the VPN buzz and saying, we got a built-in VPN. Their task is to collect and harvest all of your data. And I promise you, even if they say we're not going to be storing data, they're going to be storing and using your data. It is through a third-party connection, but it does require you to be signed into your Microsoft account, which, hey, in Windows 11 you all are, so why not? Just go ahead and do that. Well, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have affiliates. Today we are highlighting Linode, as long as they're not asking me for ID. And you can go down and use my affiliate link there, tlm.li/Linode, get $100 in credit, good for 60 days. You can do a lot of fun things like create VPNs. There's 21 guides available on a variety of VPNs. We have WireGuards, OpenVPN, CentOS. This is Ubuntu. Here's a WireGuard on Debian. Oh, this guy burped. SOCKS 5 proxy server. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do. I do have my own personal private VPN that I use. I also have a VPN that I use based out of Linode as well. Now you have to understand though, for these, they're not as much for privacy as they are for a secure connection. So I use my Linode VPN if I'm at Starbucks, want to avoid the creepy Wi-Fi. I have my own VPN hosted at Linode. So with that, use my affiliate there, tlm.li/Linode. You can set up your own VPNs and a bunch of other stuff as well. Well, let's head on over to security. First up in security, we have an update. Pixel 6 finally gets its dirty pipes patched. We reported on this study a few weeks, it must have only been a few weeks ago, where Pixel 6 and the Galaxy S22 were both affected by the Linux dirty pipe breach. Galaxy S22 patched it very quickly. Pixel 6 just got around to patching it. So if you do have a Pixel 6, make sure you do push whatever latest patch because the dirty pipe and vulnerability was pretty nasty. So there's ways somebody could gain root access to everything. Of course, if you need to, root your phone, it's good for that. But outside of that, Augury vulnerability discovered in Apple silicon and mobile chips. So M1, M1 Max, and A14 processors. So this is not a horrible bug according to the security researchers, but it's a precursor step to get into doing a lot more. So it's kind of like Spectre to my understanding. I'm not a big security guy. But researchers don't think that Augury is very dangerous, partly because it only prefetches a valid virtual address. That was really the difference. It'll prefetch a valid address, unlike I think Spectre could basically create and write to an address, which was quite a bit different. But it can break address space layout randomization, which is the first step in an exploit. And Apple's aware of it, so they'll probably patch it pretty quickly. But just so you know, Apple does have a possible vulnerability, something to keep an eye on. And finally, the GitHub contributors will be required to use two-factor authentication. I do not think this is a bad idea because an option for two-factor authentication is to be using security keys. Everybody should be using security keys anyway. And GitHub was sending out security keys to people as well. Of course, you still can use your phones and things like that, which I would not recommend doing. But just be aware, I think it's by 2023, by the end of next year, everybody contributing on GitHub is going to have 2FA enabled. But again, you can use YubiKeys and things like that. And I think that everybody needs to do some form of YubiKey authentication into for two-factor authentication. It's way better than using phones, way more secure than anything. But I do recommend, if you're looking into it, pick yourself up at least 2 YubiKeys, put both of them on your accounts, lock one of them in a safe safely, and keep the other one around you. Also, if you're using a lot of mobile devices, get one of the YubiKeys that works on mobile devices. Mine are older models, so they don't work on mobile devices. So be aware of that as well. Now, I don't log into things on my phone, so I don't really care. But just make sure that you are considering the mobile as well. Well, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a Subscribestar page, subscribestar.com/SwitchedToLinux. I did realize today that it is actually not linked in the description of my videos, and I thought it was. So I'm going to go ahead and try and remember to get that patched tonight. So you can find the links to Patreon and everything else in the description. So you can go ahead and go down there. But this is subscribestar.com/SwitchedToLinux. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.